P. Koschnick.
Ladies and gentlemen, the original old-fashioned, new and improved. So tonight I want you to put away your pills, to forget all your ills, to clean up your spills, because tonight you will experience the glory that is stored. Okay, that's that. My name is Pete. I was raised in a very small town up in Washington State on the coast, kind of town where there were about 1,200 people when I was growing up there. It's now much bigger because the artists founded it. But back then it was a fishing village in the lumbering town. Kind of town where every year 30 little kids would start the first grade. And every spring, about 8 teenagers would graduate from high school. And the rest were either in the service, in prison, or married with children and working in a lumber camp or on a fishing boat. The year that I started, I walked in very proud. One of those 30 kids. They had 2 classrooms. Mrs. Wharton's classroom, where there were hamsters and a fish tank and construction paper rainbows on the wall and piping paper snowflakes hung from the ceiling. And in the classroom I was in, Miss Tooker's. There was nothing on the walls, chalkboards and a chart of demerits. Miss Tooker probably was in her early 30s. She looked about 195. She had blonde hair pulled back in such a tight bun that her forehead was perfectly smooth. She had a natural facelift. She wore cat's eye glasses with a gold chain. Remember that gold chain? High neck white blouses, dark plaid, wool skirts that came down below her knees, and kitten heels, black kitten. Remember kitten heels? They were like black severe shoes with not that much of a heel. And she was a tyrant. There was no Mr. Tooker. The only substitute we ever got was her mother, Mrs. Tooker. And you couldn't really tell the difference, except Mrs. Tooker was a little bigger. She ran that room like a concentration camp. I think there was no messing around that room. We had these metal desks that had 2 open shelves in them. The bottom big shelf was for your books. The upper shelf was your pens, pencils, and crayons, in that order. Pencils and crayons, and your ruler, and your scissors. And if you ever had anything else in that desk, she would grab the front of it. Now the chair was attached to it. She would grab the front of it and lift it up so that everything spilled on the floor and you fell out backwards. She would leave it turned over and you had to pick everything up. You had a count of 10 to get everything cleaned up, put back in the desk went back up. And lined up with linoleum tiles. Every desk had to be perfectly lined up with tiles. I spent a lot of time on the floor. But it was because of this that I met my best friend in the first grade, Donnie. One day she came in. Donnie was a weird kid. He was like bigger than every other kid, but he was not a bully. His favorite thing during recess was to run around. He would throw himself on the ground and yell, "Pig pile on Donnie!" And all the little kids would jump on him, you know? And then he would just stand up and they would all go quiet. And he laughed, you know. You never had him for Red Rover. Nobody ever wanted him on their side. Because even though he was big, he would run to the line. He'd always just kind of go back. It was, you know, he always lost at what's that game where you throw balls and hit each other in the head?
Dodgeball.
Dodgeball. Really cool kid. One day, Miss Tooker was dumping desks. She dumped mine, dumped a couple others. She came to Donnie's and she upended it. Donnie, who was a pretty big kid, like I say, she couldn't get him all the way up. So she actually made him get up out of his desk and she dumped it. But when she dumped it, a world came out of that thing. There were toys, there were matchbox cars, there was cornbread, there was caterpillars, there were pine cones, there were nuts, there were Legos, there were erector set pieces. Who remembers the erector set? Yeah. And Donnie just sat down and started playing. She was stacking Legos, eating cornbread, having a good time. She grabbed him and dragged him out in the hall. She said, "You stay here till I can deal with you." And we were all like, "She's going to kill him." She came back in and she declared to all of us, "You stay in your seats and don't say a word." And then we started to hear something out in the hallway. We heard, well, the way they had it set up, it was just one long hallway. And our coats went on little hangers like they have at the hotel where you can't actually take a hanger down. And then bags went up on the shelf. Oh. Donnie had eaten as many lunches as he could get his hands on, and then he proceeded to run down the hallway with his arm out and just knock as many coats down as he could. Came back. Mrs. Tooker went out and yelled, and we heard, and of course we were all like, whoa, what's going on? All of a sudden we hear the double doors go, bang, to the outside. We looked out the window. There went Donnie by the window. A couple of seconds later, there went Miss Tooker by the window. Whoa. Look at. A couple of seconds later, there went Donnie. There went Miss Tooker. There went Mr. Olson, principal. Wow. Donnie was getting ahead, too. He was winning. Pretty soon, there went Donnie. There went Miss Tooker. There went Mr. Olson. There went the two lunch ladies. All chasing Donnie around. Eventually, they caught him. And he spent the rest of that day in the office. And when he got out, turns out he and I both took the same school bus home. And I went up to him and said, dude, you're cool. My best friend? I said, yeah. And we had just a childhood that was unlike any other. Donnie's family was unlike any family I knew. My dad, got up every morning, put on a suit, went to the office at 9, worked until 5, went down to the Kiwanis Club, had 3 martinis, came home, ate his TV dinner. My mom did not drink. Then he drank more martinis until he, with the dad, I guess, or passed out. Donnie's dad did not have a job that I could tell. He was a lay preacher. They had bought an old farm, and in one of the barns, he put up some, I guess you'd call them pews. They were basically just boards on crates and stuff, and he built this big cross and put it up, and he would, every Sunday, he would preach. None of this 9 in the morning stuff. 11 to noon. He'd get up there and he'd preach and he'd sing, and I thought that was pretty cool. He also, because they had this old farm, he had this huge orchard, apple orchard, and he would press the apples in a cider press, and make apple cider to sell, and hard cider to sell, and if you really knew him well, you could get apple brandy, which he cooked out in the back. He had beehives, one of which had a window in it. You could open it up and see all the bees doing their thing. And bees love apple cider. So every school year, a whole school would go out and we could press cider, pick the apples, press the cider, watch the bees get drunk, and play around. It was great fun. Very fun. They only had one electric outlet in the whole house, and that was in the kitchen. There was a black cloth wrap wire that hung down above the middle of the room with a single light bulb in it. And they found this gizmo that had, it's screwed into a light thing, but it had electrical outlet sockets on it. So they had screwed that in and then screwed a light bulb into that, and then there was this kind of drapery of those brown plastic crumbling extension cords going off all over the place. Great adventures for a kid. But his father also did something else that I just found super amazing, and that is that he did portraiture. He painted, in the attic of their house, he had a studio. He painted these incredible, almost like a Dutch master portraits. He did the bank president, he did the school principal, he did one of my dad, which I thought was pretty cool. My brother got it, I didn't do it. Anyway, and as we grew up, it was always great fun. He was and Donnie was the only kid that would come over to my house to spend the night. Both my parents smoked 4 packs a day. So nobody wanted to spend the night at my house because they left smelling like they'd been in a tavern, But Donnie would come over because we had a TV. We did not have a TV. And Donnie loved the Friday night scary movies. So we'd stay up late. I have an older brother who's a little bit of a chicken. So we would all 3 sit there with a blanket. And when the scary parts come, my brother John would cover his eyes and go, "Tell me when it's over, tell me when it's over." We never told him when it was over. He resented that. That went on for a few years. One day, I think we were about 10 or 11, a rumor started circulating that Donnie's dad was painting a full-size nude of a woman. This is 1964, maybe? Playboy was exotic. There was probably one in the county, and we were all the little boys were looking for that. We didn't know what to do with it, but we were looking for it. There was none of this jump on the internet and lie about your 18 kind of stuff. Anything titillating was very, very rare. So one weekend, Donnie and I decided I was going to spend the night, and we were going to sneak up to his dad's studio and look at the naked lady. I was so excited. I brought my ever-ready flashlight, little chrome tube and a little red thing on the end. Didn't work very well because batteries were considered gold in those days. Every once in a while I'd go out and you just come in, bang, 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 and come back on. We waited until everyone was asleep. And then we went to his dad's roll-top desk. We opened every little door, drawer, and every little cupboard. Turns out he had a lot of keys, about 2,000 keys. Some of them in rings, some of them loose. We grabbed them all. We stepped upstairs. We got up to the door to the studio, and we tried every key. None of them worked. We tried. We were sweating bullets because we were excited. Excited like little boys can be so excited that we're going to see a naked lady. Finally, one worked on the padlock. We walked in, I had my flashlight out. It was shaking because I was so excited. There was a big canvas covered in a sheet. Oh, we're going to see a naked lady. We crept up to it. Donnie started to lift the sheet. We saw the legs. We're getting up the knees past the thigh. My flashlight burned out. Just as Donnie whipped the sheet off. Bang, bang, bang. Bang, 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 bang. Boom, flashlight came out. I shined it on the portrait. Donnie went, "Oh my God, that's my mom!" Little side note, just because I was remembering this the other day. After I dropped out of college and I worked on a fishing boat for a while, and in a lumber camp, now I think about it, I was living in this old fishing shack my parents had, no power or water, just on an island fishing shack. And Donnie calls me up out of the blue. I hadn't seen him in a while. And he says, "Yeah, I'm in college. I'm becoming a teacher, elementary school teacher, and I got a job as a student teacher in our old high school. So can I come bunk with you?" And he didn't mind if there was no power or water. He'd take showers after school. I said, "Sure, come on out." So he came out. I had another roommate who was another guy from the fishing boat. So he and I were drinking a lot and doing other illegal pharmacological experiments. And Donnie was trying very hard to be a good student. We would get him in the kitchen, which was open to the living room and also the dining area, and we would flip beer caps at him. You ever do that with beer caps? And just laugh our asses up. We thought it was so fun. Anyway, one day Donnie comes home and says, "Hey, they're having the student talent show. I don't want to go, but I have to go. Could you come with me?" I said, "Sure." Chance to see the old auditorium where I used to play in the orchestra and sing, "We wish you a Merry Christmas." It was great. It was going to be nice. We go, we're sitting there, we watch all these horrible skits by teenagers all trying to do Saturday Night Live badly. We listened to a really bad band play Cars. The Cars, remember the Cars? And it's over, and we clap, we get up to walk out. I walk up, and there's Miss Tucker sitting on the end. I said, "Oh, I got to say hi." So I went up and I took her hand. She's a little older now. I said, "Hi, Miss Tucker. My name's Pete Koschnick. I was in your class." She looked at me, she said, "You took out a library book you never returned." And I could see in my mind where it was on my mom's shelf 200 miles away. But she remembered. That's my story. I will now... Are you going to introduce the next guy?
Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm going to thank you.